Speaking of not fun games,
Jeez.
let's start with the Lions and how the offense is falling apart, but the defense has now started to rise up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, obviously they just gave up at the end. The Jamal Williams fumble was a turning point in that game, and I think the defense is just like, all right, I hate you guys. We just
Yeah.
gave you the ball in really good field position, and Jamal Williams fumbles at the goal line. That was rough.
Yeah.
And that game, that was to take the lead. So that was a huge turning point in a game that was already a grind for both teams.
Mhm.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn came out with different personnel. The four big rookies with Josh Pascal coming back. Pascal came out and played 86% of all defensive snaps in his
He was
first
really good too. I
game
thought he
back.
was he
He did a really
flashed.
nice job.
Yeah.
So much so that they didn't need to kind of rotate in John Kaminsky so much, still
Mhm.
coming back from his injury.
And getting
So,
Kaminsky back helps the pass rush too, because that's
mhm,
he is a good interior pass rusher. So that helps.
yep.
They might have to
I
double
think
him.
I think just that alone really made a huge difference in that game, and I don't necessarily think that defensive showing was a fluke.
No.
Kirby Joseph stepped up huge as a
Mhm.
safety in that game as well, so that was encouraging to see. Obviously, Jeff Okuda had one of his better games in that game too. Um,
So
Arawaria came back after his benching and actually played pretty well too.
so they
So,
had Akuda playing pretty much safety this game. He was basically in the box as a box
mhm.
safety this game, and he had 15 tackles.
Yep.
He he out of high school, he was the number one rated safety in the country, and Ohio State moved him to corner. I don't know, man. Like if you bulk give him the offseason, tell him to gain 10 or 15 pounds, I like him in that spot because he can cover tight ends. He can cover in the slot a little bit, right? He's he's struggled when he's been against the big number one receivers, right? He can cover the
Mhm.
twos and the threes and cover tight ends, and he's a good tackler. He's always been a good tackler at corner. I like him in the box a lot. And I like him as a blitzer. I like that.
It was a fun game to just see him put his nose in people. I mean, he was sniffing every ball out. He was one of the first guys there. He played across the field, and I was super impressed with Akuda's game. Obviously, they stood Aiden Hutchinson up more. That was huge. And again, this is the benefit of getting Pascal and Kaminsky back. I think that we can see more of Hutchinson standing up, and hopefully, just with this being his last big game since playing the Commanders in week 2, I think they got to take this into account and be like, okay, this was where all the good film came from him
Mhm.
in college. Let's try to
Yeah.
utilize it. He was incredibly effective standing up in college.
Well,
Why
and
not?
I think some of it is like, yeah, like you said, definitely getting Pascal back gives him a little more flexibility. And I think some of it is he definitely got hurt too at the end of that Commanders game. And I think just he was noticeably just a little slower
I
off
think
the get
people
off.
weren't biting it though because they wouldn't put him on the injury report.
Yeah. Well, he remember he had like the next week he had like 3 days he didn't even practice, and then he was very limited, and then he looked terrible that next week and just was not clearly not healthy and was just banged up, and they were pulling him off the field a little bit more too. He's played more than any other rookie, at least defensive lineman rookie. He's gotten more pressures than any rookie. He's leads all rookies in sacks by far. He's obviously he had 3 in 1, whatever 3 in 1 game, and he's clumping them together, right? But he's not a bust. I know it's
And
mostly
I don't.
me,
I think
big
it's so
Lions
hard to say
fans.
that when you watch. If you just focus on Aiden Hutchinson every play, relentless motor. He's still not giving up.
Exactly.
You can't look at busts are lazy to me.
Yeah.
They can have all the potential in the world and look
Yeah.
super good in college, but
Sure.
if they're not going to have the work ethic, which is very clear, Aiden Hutchinson has the work ethic.
Yeah.
He
Definitely.
plays
I think
he plays an incredible amount of snaps for a guy that size in his rookie year,
Yep.
learning a system, and just continually pushes his offensive lineman back almost continually. I seldom see him get stuffed.
He gets more. He's been doubled more than any other
I saw
defensive
that too. Yeah, I
as
saw
well.
that. I
He
saw a
gets
stat like
doubled
that.
a lot, which helps everybody else. I think, again, if you get all the pieces around him better, you get
This was a game
Pascal.
without Charles Harris too on the other
Yeah, you
side.
get Pascal. You get Harris back too. You
Ali
get
McNeil,
you get
Kaminsky, just
you get some of those guys going. I think he's going to be even more effective, right?
obviously on Uzurike is out for the year. I still have pegged him
He
as a bust. I hated him as a pick.
He is it. That's the definition of a bust. One, I mean, injury issues. That's not. I can't blame a guy for getting
Yeah,
hurt.
maybe he pulls a miracle out of his butt next year, but I
He's
don't
not.
see it.
He hasn't been good, right? He's that's a bust, right? But Aiden Hutchinson's been incredibly productive. He's not, yes, he's learning, right? But I don't know what some people were expecting. Like, he's a rookie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's well on his way to a 10-sack season, right? And that's what I said. I said 9 to 10 sacks, and I think you can look at that as a successful rookie year. The offense, though, has taken a nosedive, which is sad to see right now. Jared Goff had just regressed terribly in that game. There's cut up of film.
I mean, he regressed in the Patriots game, and then
there's cut up of film in this game, though, man. Like, he had Khalif Raymond on a touchdown that if he just stepped up in the pocket. He had I can't remember who it was. A little bit later in the game, in the third quarter, I think, for a touchdown. If he just steps up in the pocket, he 8 sacks that he didn't need to. He didn't step up in the pocket, which he was doing early.
I think St. Brown is such a like emergency go-to. Where it's just I have a guy that I can look at every single play.
Yeah.
And when he played 10 snaps in that game and went out with a concussion.
Yeah.
And obviously I think I saw a stat that only 6 of 24 players that went out with a concussion come back the next week.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're in protocol. They can't even, I mean, if they don't pass protocol by Tuesday, they're pretty low chance they're going to play. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it stinks. I mean, St. Brown is a security blanket for him. I think DeAndre Swift is a security blanket for him at times.
And even Shark is supposed to be that guy, and he's out.
Yep, and
Wentz
he's out.
Cephas is now out. So you're running on Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, and Tom Kennedy.
Yeah, you're seeing the injuries hurt him and hurt the offense in general. But he's got to play better. And I know, we were talking about, hey, Jared Goff is not the problem early in the year. And he wasn't, because he was playing at an elite level for the most part. But
last 2 games,
and guys go up and down, right? You saw Lamar Jackson play at an MVP level for 4 or 5 weeks, and he's not struggled to the Goff level, but he's come back down to earth a little bit the last 2 or 3 weeks, right? It does happen, right? So I'm not gonna put everything on him necessarily, but he played terrible the last 2 weeks, the last 2 games. And
if he doesn't have a bounce back game here against the Dolphins, which is going to be a very difficult game, because you're going to have to pretty much match them. I mean, your defense can play their best game, and you're still going to give up 24 points at least to the Dolphins. So we have to go pretty much toe to toe on scoring. So some games, some things that I'm looking at in this game is, I think Raheem Mostert is going to run roughshod over the Lions defense. I
don't know how they keep up with both Waddle and Hill. They can bracket one of them.
And even Mostert's extremely fast. Jakeem Grant, there's so many fast players on this team.
Yeah. Yeah, you can bracket one of them, right? And but you've seen teams try to keep Tyreek Hill in front of him, right? And then what does he end up doing? He doesn't burn him deep. He just gets 15 catches for 170 yards, right? So he can beat you in a lot of different ways. The Dolphins are explosive, and they worry me. This will be a huge test for the defense. That's why I was really hoping they could come out of the bye week and get a win. Is it time to just start looking at draft boards?
You'd be surprised. I'm not really looking at player. I mean, I'm looking at maybe top 10 players right now, but I'm not actually. I just haven't had the time. It's usually my mojo to do this, but
yeah. I worry. Right now, the Lions, if the season ended today, would have a number 1 pick. And it sucks because I really thought I didn't pick them for the playoffs. I think when we finally picked, I think I picked 6 wins or something like that. But
yeah, I had them. I think I had them with the 7th or 8th overall pick in this year's draft.
Right.
So,
and but I just, at this point, with injuries and just the way the season's gone, and Dan Campbell, there was still a couple borderline coaching gaffes in this game. I don't know. I'm not jumping off the bandwagon, the Dan Campbell bandwagon yet. I still think there's things to build on, but he's got to figure out some of the in-game stuff. This game wasn't on him, from an in-game coaching perspective by any means, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But he did have the one where he didn't challenge the one right before the Williams fumble, and people were getting on.
They rushed it. I mean, obviously, I look at it again. It was definitely short, but
sure, but it was closer than what it was.
Yeah.
Right. But my whole thing is, okay, right? You don't challenge that one, but you can't predict a fumble from the 1 yard line. You know what I mean? That's on Jamal Williams, and if anything. So I don't know. It's just a frustrating team to watch right now. And if like you said, if Goff doesn't bounce back, one, they're going to get blown out next game if he doesn't bounce back, and two, then maybe you do start looking at the top QBs of next year. I mean, I think that's kind of
I don't trust some of the top QBs, to be quite honest with you. So
just don't draft an Ohio State quarterback, and we'll be all right. That's all it is. So. Yeah, but I don't trust him. I mean, I don't love Hendon Hooker's old. Bryce Young is little and injury prone, and CJ Stroud is an Ohio State QB. So those are your top three right there. And I don't really trust him. So I don't know. It's frustrating and tough. So tough year, but hopefully they can find a way to bounce. If the defense performs really well against Miami, then I think we're going to be feeling really good about Aaron Glenn and. Because I was pretty low on Aaron Glenn.
To me, but it also felt fluky because we saw Aaron Glenn did with even less talent last year.
Yeah,
and it was like,
that's
okay,
true. That's really true.
We're going to lose him as a head coaching gig.
Well, I think what was happening is Aaron Glenn wanted to play a certain way, and just does not have the personnel to play that way, and he kind of got caught up in that. And then beyond that, they drafted this team as. To play the way that Aaron Glenn wants to play, right? But they didn't have all the pieces they put together. Like Pascal's been out. Some of the interior guys have been out. Tracy Walker goes down. The corners have been hurt. Oruwariye has been horrendous up to last week. Yeah. I mean, you can't really count on that when he was your best corner at times last year. Maybe they've wanted to play Akuda like this all year, right? But they just if Oruwariye is that bad, I don't know. Maybe we can't do that, that type of thing. So maybe now we'll start to see, get some of these guys back on defense. You're not getting Walker back, but if Kirby Joseph comes along, like you said, maybe
Sean Elliott steps up too. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you'll start seeing some of, what he really envisions as his defense come about. But the offense has got to figure it out a little bit. And
I would really like him to get it back together because just means an extra compensational pick.
Yeah.
So
it does.
It does. So
it does.
I'm trying to look at the positive. Let's get it
at
back
this point.
together.
At this point, we're not obviously definitely not making the playoffs. Not a good enough team to do that. But at this point, you want to see improvement. And if you can find a way to find 4 or 5 wins, not more wins, just total this year, I think you could still look at this season as a success. It's a long NFL season, right? And the Commanders turn out they really do stink. So that's your only win right now. But you've been close enough in some of these other games where
I think you still have the closest game with the only undefeated team left with the Eagles. I think we still have the closest game.
That's true. And they were, that was probably the healthiest the Lions have been all year, obviously, other than, Pascal and a couple of the other guys. But I think they can find a way to find 4 or 5 wins this year still. I'm not saying they will.
Yeah, I mean, even it's hard to look at the schedule right now and just because this Lions team is so what the heck? Where did you come from? It's either really good product or it's just unwatchable. And
they're very Jekyll and Hyde, and they haven't been able to put together a good defensive performance with a really good offensive performance yet. Commanders was a half of that.
Yeah. We got a taste. We got a glimpse. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And we'll talk about that recap next week. We'll talk about the Michigan State recap next week and preview the remainder of the season going up against maybe a trap game with Illinois and then Ohio State hopefully being undefeated going into that
game. They got Rutgers first, though, right? I think.
Yep, I think it's Rutgers, and then it's still – is it Illinois after that and then Ohio State?
No, it's Rutgers and then somebody
Nebraska.
else.
Nebraska
at home. Yeah, so they got Rutgers at night in Piscataway, which is just dumb. I don't know why that's at night. Again, another night game. And then they've got Nebraska at home. I would assume would be a noon game.
That's probably a noon game, yeah.
Maybe a 3:30, but probably a noon game. They haven't. I don't know if they've had a 3:30 game yet this year.
They have not had a 3:30 game.
They had big noon. They had Joel and Gus up 4 weeks in a row, which is cool. And obviously, they get Illinois, which that'll be a trap game. I think. I mean, it'll be a good game. That'll be a test.
A lot of people are considering Illinois to be one of the best defenses in college football right now. So
yep. So that'll be a good one, and then they got the big one. But as of now, I don't really see either team losing before that one. So that could be really fun.
I think, Penn State, though, in Penn State, I'm rooting hard for Penn State in that game.
Against Ohio State?
Yeah.
That's the only game I think they could possibly.
That's big noon, though, too. If that was a night game, whiteout, Penn State.
I don't know why they didn't do the whiteout. They did whiteout last week against against who? Against
it was like in wasn't
Minnesota.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, come on, guys.
Save that for one more week. Good.
I know, but I don't know. I think they knew they didn't have. I think they probably knew they weren't going to win, so they want to win the whiteout game. So
and they blew them out. So
it's tough. But that is the one game I think Ohio State could lose. But I don't see them losing otherwise. I mean,
no, I don't either.
I'm not saying I'm overly impressed with Ohio State either. They struggled with Iowa at times. I know it was 54-10, but the offense wasn't that good. Iowa's offense is the worst thing I've ever seen. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. All right, we'll start pondering your 2006 first overall pick. That will be next week as well.
2006.
Yeah.
I don't know who's in that one yet. I'll have to.
I'll make sure I send that over to you. That'll be fun.
All right, I'll take a peek. So,
all right. We'll see you, man.
Cool. See you.